My brother Callum got promoted last spring. A big one, company-wide announcement, champagne in the office kind of thing. Senior management. Corner office. The works. My parents were ecstatic. They took him and his girlfriend on a week-long luxury cruise through the Mediterranean. Full package. 5-star everything. They posted photos every day, dinner on the deck, matching robes, sunset toasts with captions like, "So proud of our boy." I liked the photos. Sent a congrats message. Even called Callum before they left to say, "Well deserved, man." And then I went back to work. 3 months later, I got promoted too. Not quite as flashy as Callum's, but still big. I was moved into a lead role at my firm's analytics department. It was the first time I'd ever managed people. First time my name went on the internal newsletter. I told my parents over dinner. They smiled. Said, "That's great." My dad nodded, added "Well done." My mom asked about the dress code in the new role. And then the conversation shifted to Callum again. His girlfriend had just opened a boutique. They'd adopted a dog. I didn't expect a matching vacation. But I thought maybe there'd be something. A card. A toast. A gesture. Instead, they left for the lake house that weekend, just the two of them. No invite. No message. Just a selfie from the dock with another caption. Finally, some quiet. At first, I told myself it didn't matter. Not everything had to be celebrated. Not everything needed fanfare. But then, 2 weeks later, I found out from my aunt that they'd offered to pay for Callum's wedding venue. They weren't even engaged yet. When I asked my mom about it, she brushed it off. "We just want to make sure they're set up when the time comes." Set up. Like they were preparing a future they assumed I didn't need, or wasn't worthy of. I thought about confronting them. But I didn't want to sound jealous. Or petty. Or like I was keeping score. So I buried it. Until my birthday came around. It landed on a Tuesday. I wasn't expecting anything major, maybe dinner, maybe a cake. But when I called to ask if they were free, my dad said they were heading out of town for a quick getaway. I asked where? "Same cruise line we took with Callum," he said. "They gave us a discount for being return customers." I didn't say anything. He filled the silence with a chuckle. "We'll take you next time." But we both knew there wouldn't be a next time. Not for me. That night, I sat alone in my apartment, eating takeout, scrolling through their new cruise photos. Callum had commented on one. "Looks familiar." Dozens of likes. No one mentioned me. No one ever did. And that was the moment something in me shifted. Not into anger, not yet. But into awareness. This wasn't about a trip. It was about position. About how they saw me. Not as the second son. But as the one who didn't need anything. The one they could ignore because he wouldn't push back. Because I never made a scene. They thought they knew me. But that was about to change. 2 weeks after their second cruise, we had a family dinner. It wasn't anything formal, just a Sunday barbecue at my parents' place. The kind of thing we'd done 100 times. Callum and his girlfriend were there. So were 2 aunts, an uncle, and our cousin Sam. I almost didn't go. But something in me wanted to see if they'd say anything. If the vacation photos posted over my birthday came with even a sliver of apology. An acknowledgement. A late toast. Anything. Instead, I got a nod from my dad and a half hug from my mom. No. Happy birthday. No. How's the new role? No. Let's sit down and catch up. The topic of the night was, again, Callum. His company had asked him to speak at a regional leadership summit. My parents beamed as he described the invite, the guest list, and the keynote lineup. Everyone clapped. Someone asked if he was nervous. His girlfriend said, "He was born for this." I took a sip of beer and watched. No one asked about my promotion. Not even once. When the food came out, I helped carry drinks from the kitchen. No one noticed. I refilled glasses, picked up a plate someone dropped. Still invisible. At one point, my mom asked if I could take a photo of the group. I held the phone up, centered them, and saw it, a snapshot of everyone glowing, arms around each other, Callum at the center. And I, not in the frame. Literally. She didn't ask me to get in the shot. I handed the phone back and went inside under the pretense of checking a message. But I didn't come out right away. I stood in the hallway, just out of view, and listened. They were talking about Christmas plans. Callum and his girlfriend were going to take a trip abroad. Their gift to themselves, my mom said. My dad offered to chip in for the flights. Not a beat skipped. No one wondered if I'd be around. No one asked what I was doing. It was like I was a guest in the house I grew up in, useful when needed, invisible the rest of the time. That's when I decided something. I wasn't going to argue about the past. I wasn't going to ask why they treated me like a supporting character in my own family. But I was going to start responding differently. So when Christmas did come, I didn't send gifts. I didn't show up. I didn't message to explain. I let the silence speak. My mother called 3 days later. We missed you. I told her I was busy with work. You could have said something. I thought about it, I said. But then I remembered, you didn't say anything when you boarded a cruise on my birthday. She got quiet. Then said, almost defensively, it wasn't meant to hurt you. We didn't think you'd care that much. That sentence settled deep in my chest. Not because it was cruel. Because it was honest. They didn't think I'd care. Because I trained them not to. I hung up soon after, politely. Not angry. Just done. The next family event, I declined. Said I had plans? The one after that? I didn't respond at all. And slowly, the invites came less often. They still saw Callum every week. Still posted brunch photos. Still tagged each other in articles about rising young professionals. Me? I became a ghost in my own bloodline. And for the first time, I stopped trying to haunt it. I stopped measuring my milestones by who noticed them. There's a quiet shift that happens when you finally stop waiting for recognition from people who've made it clear they're not looking in your direction. I focused on work. Not in the bury my feelings in my job way, I mean really focused. I started pitching projects higher up the chain, took on risk, started managing a team that doubled in size in under a year. Eventually, I moved into a role with oversight over 3 departments. Not just numbers, strategy. Direction. My name started appearing in industry newsletters. I spoke on a panel. I mentored junior staff. I wasn't chasing approval anymore. I was chasing what I knew I was capable of. And I was hitting it. That year I bought a place. Not a massive house, but a condo in a city I loved. Bright, clean, near a park, with a balcony that got the best kind of late afternoon light. I threw a housewarming party. Invited coworkers, a few friends from university, and my neighbors. My parents weren't on the list. Callum wasn't either. Not because I wanted to hurt them. But I didn't want to perform for them anymore. I didn't want to watch them compare what I'd built to whatever Callum had posted most recently. I didn't want their approval like a stamp on a passport I'd already earned. Then something unexpected happened. An old friend of my parents, someone I barely knew but who'd met me a few times as a kid, messaged me on LinkedIn. Short, polite. Heard about your recent success. Congratulations, your parents must be thrilled. I stared at it. Felt something tighten in my chest. Because no, they weren't thrilled. They hadn't said a word. They hadn't asked about the new job. Never called when my name was listed in a professional profile roundup. Never mentioned the condo. Not even a comment under the photo I'd posted, my first one in 6 months, standing on the new balcony, glass in hand, smiling. They knew. Of course they did. We shared enough mutual connections. People talked. Family friends commented on the post. My cousin texted me to say she'd shown her mom. They knew. But still, silence. Then came Callum's engagement. It was a full production announcement, photos in a flower field, a branded hashtag, champagne, and a drone video of the proposal. The caption? She said yes. Couldn't have done it without the people who always believed in me. The first comment was from my mom. We're so proud of you, sweetheart. You've built something beautiful. I closed the app. Not because I was angry, but because I was finally starting to feel the difference between being ignored and being free. I didn't send a gift. Didn't like the post. Didn't respond when my dad texted a week later to say the engagement party was coming up and they assumed I'd be there. I replied simply, I won't be attending, No reason. No apology. And this time, no follow-up. They'd started to notice the distance. I could feel it in the subtle shifts, the occasional check in text, the slight hesitations in my mother's voice when she left voicemails. But they hadn't connected it to anything they did. Because people who don't see you to begin with can't imagine why you disappear. And I wasn't going out of spite. I was gone because I'd finally realized. You don't owe closeness to the people who only call it family when it's convenient. You don't owe your presence to the table where your seat has always been borrowed, never built. I wasn't chasing applause. Not anymore. But when the nomination came through, something in me still flickered, that old instinct, the one that wants someone to notice when you finally break through the ceiling they said you'd never touch. The email came from an industry organization I'd quietly respected for years. Nominee, Alexander Reed, Leadership in Tech and Analytics. I read it twice. Then just sat there. Not grinning. Not fists pumping. Just still. Because for the first time, I knew what it felt like to be recognized by people who had no obligation to like me, and did anyway. My coworkers threw a toast. They decorated the office kitchen with streamers. Someone baked a cake with my name on it. There were speeches. Laughter. Even my old manager sent a handwritten card. You did this with no shortcuts. All earned. All you. I posted a single photo, just a plaque with my name engraved on the nomination list. No caption. The comments poured in. Old friends. Colleagues. Professors. A few extended relatives I hadn't heard from in years liked the post. My parents? Nothing. Not even a text. At first, I thought maybe they hadn't seen it. But then I got a message from my cousin Layla. Saw your name on that nominee list. Told your mom, she didn't know? She did. She just didn't say anything. Or didn't want to. Or didn't think it mattered enough to pick up the phone. A week later, the award ceremony happened. Black tie, big venue, formal photos. I didn't win, but I didn't need to. Being nominated was enough. That, and the room full of people who stood when my name was read aloud. Who saw me? All of me. And then, when I got home, I saw it. A comment on one of Callum's new posts. Another career announcement. Another achievement. And beneath it, my mom's comment. We've never been prouder. The timing? 2 hours after my name was read aloud on stage. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just sat. And understood something that I hadn't wanted to accept, even after everything. It wasn't about me not being successful enough. It wasn't about me not being flashy. It was about roles. To them, I wasn't the golden child. I was the one who'd always make it work. The one who didn't need the support, so they didn't offer it. That night, I opened a document on my laptop and wrote a letter. Not to them. To myself. To the version of me that still wanted them to see it. Still waited for the call that would never come. You're done waiting. I wrote. You're done proving. They saw you. They just didn't want to admit it. And now you don't need them to. I never sent them the letter. Never brought up the nomination. When they eventually called, weeks later, to ask if I was coming to Callum's wedding, I said, no. My mom hesitated. He'd really like you to be there. He never asked? He assumed you'd show up. That's the problem, I said. She was quiet. Then, again, defensively. You don't have to make this so dramatic. I'm not, I said. I'm just making it honest. She didn't argue. Didn't apologize. Just ended the call with a flat. Well, take care. And that was that. No follow-up. No explanation. Just the space I'd learned to live in, this time, finally on my terms. I didn't go to the wedding. Didn't send a gift. Didn't send regrets. Didn't respond to the family group chat when someone posted a photo of Callum and his wife walking down the aisle under a canopy of sparklers. I muted the thread. They didn't ask where I was? Not directly. But 2 days later, I got a message from my cousin Sam. We hadn't talked in over a year. No falling out, just distance, the kind that happens when you live different lives long enough. Hey. Not to be weird, but... You okay? I replied. Yeah. Why? Just, everyone noticed you weren't at the wedding. Your mom looked kind of off about it. Thought you might have had a reason. I sat with that for a minute. Then wrote back. She knew I wasn't coming. Yeah, he said. But I don't think she thought you'd stick to it. That line stuck with me. Because it was true. They were used to me bending. Showing up. Filling space when no one else would. Holding the peace by being silent. But this time, I wasn't filling anything. And the absence left a shape they couldn't smooth over. Sam messaged again a day later. I talked to your Aunt Jill. She said something kind of strange. Go on. Your dad told some people that you've been doing your own thing for a while, but didn't say what that was. I stared at the message. So, they don't even tell people what I do? I guess not. She said he changed the subject really fast. It wasn't just that they weren't proud of me. They were embarrassed by what they couldn't control. I didn't fit into their version of family success. I didn't ask for help, didn't rely on them, didn't perform the role they'd scripted for me. So, rather than acknowledge my path, they pretended it didn't exist. That way, they never had to answer for why they'd supported one son with vacations, funding, and applause, and left the other to build his future from nothing. Later that week, Sam and I got coffee. He asked more questions about my work, my move, my life. Said he felt bad for not keeping in touch. I guess I thought you were too busy, he said. I was, I told him. But not for this. We sat quietly for a bit. Then he said something that landed harder than I expected. I always thought they treated you differently. I just didn't know how much of it you were carrying. That was the thing. No one ever sees the weight until you finally stop holding it. Before we parted ways, he looked at me and asked, Do you think you'll ever go back? To the family? I said. He nodded. I don't know, I answered. Maybe. But not as someone waiting to be let in. Only if I get to decide where I stand. That night, I passed the framed nomination letter on my way to bed. I used to keep it by the door so I could look at it before leaving for work, proof that I mattered. Now, it just lived there. Quiet. Present. Like me. I didn't need it to remind me anymore. But I didn't move it either. Because some things aren't about being seen. They're about being rooted in who you are, whether anyone claps or not. The message came 6 months after the wedding. Simple. Unexpected. Hey. You're free to talk sometime? I stared at it longer than I should have. Callum wasn't the type to send vague messages. He was always direct, always a planner, always the golden son with a calendar full of dinner reservations and team meetings. This wasn't like him. I replied 2 hours later. Sure. What's up? He asked if we could meet for coffee. I said okay. We picked a place halfway between us. A quiet cafe with wide windows and too many empty chairs for a Tuesday afternoon. He looked tired. Still polished. Still wearing a jacket that probably cost more than my first month's rent. But there was something frayed around the edges, in the way he ran his hand through his hair, in how he didn't start the conversation with small talk. He just said, You didn't come to the wedding. I nodded. No. I didn't. He nodded back. No accusation? Just acceptance. I wasn't surprised, he said after a pause. But I guess I hoped you would. I know, I said. But you never asked me to come. Not directly. Did I need to? That's kind of the point. He looked down at his coffee. I think I didn't ask because I knew the answer. And why do you think the answer was no? I asked. He exhaled. Because we left you behind. And we acted like you were the one who walked away. That stopped me. Not because it was dramatic. But because it was true. And because it was the first time someone from my family had said it out loud. You know what really hurt? I said. It wasn't the cruises. Or the funding. Or even being ignored. What then? It was the silence. It was watching you all celebrate each other over and over while I sat on the outside like it was normal. Like I was the quiet one. When really? I just got tired of trying to matter in a room that didn't leave a chair for me. He didn't argue. Didn't defend our parents. Just listened. They didn't mean to make it that way, he said finally. I know, I said. But they still did. We talked for over an hour. About the childhood differences. The little ways they favored him. The assumptions they made about me being fine on my own. And then he said, I think I like being the favorite because I didn't know what it was costing you. And I didn't know what being forgotten was doing to me. I said. Until I stopped pretending it didn't hurt. Before we left, he asked if I'd ever consider coming around again. Not for them. Just to show up. To be seen. Maybe, I said. But it would have to be different. I'd like it to be. That mattered more than he knew. Because he wasn't offering a bridge back to the old setup. He was opening a door I didn't have to crawl through. That night I got a message from him. Thanks for today. I hope it's not the last time. I replied. That's up to all of us. And for once, I believed we might try. Not because we needed to fix everything. But because we were finally telling the truth. Spring came quietly. No announcements. No formal invitations. Just a group message from Callum. Thinking of doing a casual dinner at ours next weekend. Open to anyone who wants to come. No pressure. I almost ignored it. Not out of bitterness. But because I wasn't sure what showing up would mean anymore. Would it be awkward? Performative? Would it feel like stepping back into a house that once forgot I existed? But something about the message was different. No assumptions. No schedule. No passive guilt. Just an opening. So I went. Callum's place wasn't what I expected. Not flashy. Not showy. Just a warm living room, soft music, a long dining table that looked like it had seen a few real conversations. I walked in and for the first time in years, no one made a big deal out of my arrival. No dramatic, "Look who's here!" No wide-eyed surprise. Just Callum saying, "Hey, glad you made it." And someone else, my cousin Layla, smiling and pulling out a chair. "This one's for you." It wasn't a throne. It wasn't carved in gold. It was just a regular wooden chair. But it was there. On purpose. And that mattered. More than anyone in that room could have guessed. We talked about work, briefly. I mentioned a new hire, a shift in leadership. Callum asked thoughtful questions. No sideways jabs. No fake surprise at my answers. My Aunt Jill complimented the way I handled a community panel she'd seen online. Someone brought up the wedding, but not like a weapon. Just a timeline marker. And no one tried to make me feel bad for missing it. Because they were starting to understand that absence isn't always about rejection. Sometimes, it's the only language someone has left when they've been spoken over for too long. As the evening wound down, Callum pulled me aside while people cleaned up. "I didn't tell Mom you were coming," he said. I raised an eyebrow. "Didn't think she'd want to know? Didn't think it was her business," he said. "She'll find out. And she'll have feelings. But you don't owe her anything." I nodded. "You sure she won't give you grief for inviting me?" "She already does." He smirked. "Might as well make it worth it." That was the first time I laughed about all of it. Genuinely. Not out of irony. Not bitterness. Just relief. Because for the first time, we weren't pretending. As I left that night, Callum walked me out. No heavy words. No dramatic handshakes. Just, "Next time you're bringing dessert." And I said, "Only if I get to pick the playlist." Driving home, I didn't feel triumphant. I didn't feel like I'd won some invisible war. I just felt grounded. Like I had finally stopped orbiting a family system that never built space for me, and instead, watched it slowly tilt to meet me halfway. Not because I demanded it. But because I stopped performing for it. Some things hadn't changed. My parents still weren't calling. Still posting about Callum. Still pretending that distance was a coincidence. But I no longer needed their recognition. I had built something outside their spotlight. And I had let it grow long enough that it didn't shrink under their shadow. The chair at Callum's table didn't erase what had happened. But it didn't need to. Because I didn't show up to rewrite history. I showed up to live without apology. You don't always get the apology. You don't always get the round of applause. Sometimes, all you get is your name spoken again, not as an afterthought, but as a person worth pulling out a chair for. And sometimes, that's more than enough.